Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something lots of us maybe take for granted. This idea that our online life is somehow totally separate from our, real offline life. But is that actually true? Is there really such a clean break between who we are online and offline? We're going to dig into this using a really interesting article. It's called Online and Offline: Two Connected Realities by Louise Valerio P. Trindade. And it basically argues these worlds are deeply linked.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack how things said and done online have these very real, sometimes very severe effects in the physical world. The article kicks off by looking back at 2015 at a campaign in Brazil called Virtual Racism: Real Consequences. It was run by this feminist NGO, Criolla,
Oh, well.
and it got a lot of attention because, well, racist hate speech online was already becoming a bigger problem, and this campaign really shone a spotlight on it.
Right. So the goal was to show people, hey, this online stuff isn't just happening in a vacuum. It has real weight. So
Yeah.
how does the article sort of frame that core connection?
Well, that's the fundamental point, isn't it? The article argues pretty strongly that this idea of the virtual and offline being parallel realities, like something out of sci-fi, it's just not right. They're intrinsically connected, woven together. What happens in one space directly affects the other. It means online actions don't just, vanish into the ether. They shape our actual world, our well-being.
So it's like our brains don't really separate the two experiences. An online insult feels just as real.
The article seems to suggest something like that these discriminatory words, these intolerant posts, even though they're just pixels on a screen, they land with real emotional weight. They cause genuine harm.
And I suppose one of the clearest and maybe most devastating examples of this connection is mental health. We're talking more than just hurt feelings here.
Oh, absolutely. Far beyond. The author actually shares a really powerful story from interviews they did back in 2016 for their doctoral thesis in Brazil. They spoke to someone who was targeted by, dozens of racist posts online. People tried to brush them off, just harmless jokes.
Right, the classic dismissal.
Exactly. But this person, they developed a full-blown panic disorder. They were literally afraid to leave their house for months, terrified of being recognized or mocked in public.
Wow.
Yeah. And they needed significant psychological counseling just to start recovering. So this story really drives home the article's point. There's a very strong link, a correlation between online hate speech and serious mental health problems. What seems fleeting online can become debilitating offline.
And it gets even darker, doesn't it? The article brings up examples where the
Yeah.
consequences are just devastating.
It does, tragically. There's the case from England in 2017, a 14-year-old girl. She took her own life after being exposed to just a massive amount of disturbing content on her Instagram.
Oh, what are we talking?
Over 2,100 posts, texts, images, videos, stuff explicitly encouraging suicide as a way out of depression and anxiety. Just horrifying.
That's unbelievable.
And it's not totally isolated, sadly. There was a report mentioned from the Children's Society and Young Minds in England. It found that 38% of young people felt social media negatively impacted how they feel.
38%.
And for girls, it was even higher. 46% said it negatively impacted their self-esteem.
Mm.
And then there's another case, this one from Italy in June 2021. An 18-year-old gay man committed suicide. No note was left, but the police investigation, well, it uncovered a huge number of really derogatory posts on his Instagram.
What kind of posts?
Awful stuff, including calls for, death to gays. The investigators came to believe that cyberbullying and online homophobia were likely motives.
It's just heartbreaking. Hearing these stories really makes you confront the impact these digital spaces have.
Yeah.
So when you look at all these cases together, different ages, different places, what's the big picture? Especially for young people.
I think the big picture is undeniable, really. These cases show the incredibly serious negative impact hate speech on social media can have. And yes, particularly on young people who are, let's face it, the main users of these platforms, but also on adults. It paints a pretty sobering picture. It tells us the digital world isn't some detached game. It's a place where real psychological harm happens and, tragically, can escalate.
Moving beyond the individual level, though, the article also talks about another really worrying link between politically motivated hate speech online and, well, actual physical violence.
Right. That's a really important dimension the article explores. It points to the Brexit referendum in England back in 2016. There was apparently a noticeable spike in physical violence against immigrants from Eastern Europe around that time.
And the link to online speech.
In many cases that were recorded, these attacks were preceded by and seemingly fueled by really aggressive, xenophobic posts online. Things like, go back where you came from, that sort of rhetoric. And it mentioned similar patterns in Greece some years back. Violence against immigrants stirred up by widespread nationalist slogans online, like, we want Greece to belong to the Greeks.
So individual attacks, but does it scale up?
Well, the article connects this to larger events, too. What the author calls moments of collective madness that seem heavily influenced by online discourse. It mentions the invasion of the Capitol in the U.S. in January 2021, which had casualties, remember?
Yes, of course.
And also the invasion and looting of government buildings in Brazil in January 2023. In both situations, the article argues the crowds seemed clearly influenced, even inflamed, by months and months of extremist political messages spread online challenging election results.
It's quite terrifying how that sustained drumbeat of hate speech and, frankly, fake news online can warp perceptions and stir up emotions to the point where it boils over into actual mass disruption and violence. Now, we often hear the defense, right? People posting hateful things online say, oh, it's just words, or it's a harmless prank, or they hide behind free expression. How does the article tackle that?
It tackles it head on, really. It says, look at the evidence. Look at these real-world examples we've just talked about. They paint a very different and, frankly, quite worrying picture. The conclusion is pretty stark. The consequences can be incredibly serious, and because of that, using digital technology has to come with great responsibility.
For everyone.
For everyone. Ordinary citizens, yes, but maybe especially for prominent public figures who have a wider reach. The whole "it's harmless" argument just doesn't hold water when you see the real-world impacts.
So the takeaway is really unavoidable, isn't it? Online, offline, they're not separate zones. Words have power, real power. They can hurt individuals directly, target them.
Yes, and they can also cause harm indirectly by inciting violence or that collective madness we mentioned,
Yeah.
or even encouraging self-harm.
It definitely forces a rethink of how we see our clicks and comments.
And what's fascinating, too, is how the article suggests our offline values, our beliefs, our ideologies, they don't just disappear when we log on. They actually guide how we behave online, which makes that sense of responsibility for what we post even more critical. It's basically a reflection of who we are offline and online.
Okay, so given this deep connection, what does this mean for us personally? How do we navigate this? The article offers some practical advice, right? Sort of self-check before posting.
It does. It offers a rule that's described as very simple but also very effective, a way to just pause and think.
Okay, what is it?
First, before you hit post, try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask yourself, honestly, would I want someone writing these rude, aggressive things about me?
Right, basic empathy.
Exactly. Then the next question is this content really as funny or harmless as I first thought? It forces you to consider the potential impact, not just your own intent.
Good one.
And finally, this is crucial. Before you write anything about someone else's life, ask yourself, am I absolutely certain I have all the real, concrete, verifiable facts?
That challenges gossip and speculation. That's a simple but really strong set of questions. What makes them work, do you think?
I think it's because they tap into fundamental things, empathy, considering consequences, seeking truth. They force that moment of reflection, moving beyond the immediate impulse. And the article concludes the rule simply. If the answer to any of those questions is no, well, you know what to do. It's time to stop. Don't post it. It directly links that big idea of connected realities to your own actions.
So there we have it. This deep dive really hammers home that connection, doesn't it? Online actions have real, offline consequences. What we share, comment, amplify, it all matters. It all ripples out.
Absolutely. The power of words is immense, and that demands responsibility from all of us, individually and collectively, in this digital age. And that leaves us with a pretty big thought, doesn't it? If our offline values really do guide our online behavior, what does the growing severity of online hate tell us about the values we're cultivating offline as a society? And maybe more importantly, how can we work to strengthen those values?